Health and fitness requires more than just the physical work. It starts with the work you put in to grow your mind. Welcome to the Mind Gains podcast, where we discuss what it takes mentally to see results physically. I'm your host, Jess. Let's get started. Hello, all, and welcome to the Mind Gains podcast. Today is part 2 of our 3-part series of really deep diving into each of the 3 macronutrients. If you're unfamiliar with macronutrients, they are comprised of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Last week, we did a deep dive into protein, all about it, what its function is in the body, why it's so important for our fitness and overall health, how much you should be eating per day, different sources of protein, and more. And today we're doing the same exact thing, but with carbohydrates, my personal favorite macronutrient. Carbs get such a bad rep. People think that carbs cause weight gain and that you have to cut out carbohydrates if you want to lose weight, and that you shouldn't eat fruit past 5 p.m. because they're a carb and contain sugar. And if you do, you're going to get fat. Yeah, I've actually had someone say this to me before. And not only that, the person that said this was a personal trainer. Can you tell how just dumbfounded I am? Like, I truly can't wrap my head around this type of thinking, especially from someone who should definitely know better and who's leading others in this space. It's all ridiculous. It's laughable. And if anyone tells you anything like this, you know straight off the bat that you can disregard anything else that comes out of their mouth because they're spewing lies that they don't even know the first thing about. They just took what someone else said as truth and are regurgitating it without ever having looked into it first and doing their own research. So today we're going to be correcting some of those myths and educating ourselves on why carbohydrates are not your enemy and how they actually help you reach and maintain your body recomposition goals. And yes, you heard that right. They don't hinder you from reaching your fat loss or muscle building goal. They help you reach your goals if utilized properly. Just like any other piece of health and fitness, strength training helps you reach your body recomposition goals, but it's only going to work properly if you know what you're doing and you're executing on that correctly and in alignment with whatever your goals are. So, same thing here. And to kick us off, I want to really go over what the role of carbohydrates are in the human body. So, let's just start there. The basic unit of a carbohydrate is called a monosaccharide. This is the carbohydrate broken down into its smallest form, which is just essentially a single sugar unit. Monosaccharides can link together then to form complex carbohydrates, which are disaccharides if it's 2 monosaccharides, or polysaccharides if it's 3 or more monosaccharides linked together. This is where you're getting simple carbs versus complex carbs that you may hear people talk about. It's just coming down to what the structural composition of that carbohydrate is. The primary role of carbohydrates is to provide energy to the body, and this is done by breaking down that carbohydrate into glucose, a process called glycolysis. Glucose is found in the blood. You may have heard this referred to as blood sugar, and it's vital for brain function, nervous system function, and muscle function. Our brains run off of glucose. They need it in order to have proper neuronal activity and neurotransmitter synthesis. Or more simply put, our brains need glucose for things like proper cognitive function, the ability to learn, retain, and recall information, and memory function. Glucose is needed to have a properly functioning nervous system. Again, it's needed to produce neurotransmitters, which are the chemical messengers that allow neurons to communicate with each other. The nervous system requires a continuous supply of glucose in order to maintain metabolic homeostasis. Glucose is also what serves as the primary fuel source for muscles, allowing them to contract properly. So, overall, glucose is required in order for your body to just be able to function and do all the things it does on a daily basis. If blood glucose levels drop, which is again the amount of sugar that's circulating in your bloodstream and readily available to be used as an immediate energy source, The liver will convert glycogen, which is the storage form of glucose in the body, stored in your muscles, your brain, your liver, some tissues. It'll convert glycogen back to glucose in order to be used for energy. The opposite happens when blood glucose or blood sugar is rising. The pancreas will release insulin to help glucose enter your cells in order to become glycogen. Again, the storage form of glucose, and then be stored away for later when blood sugar levels drop again and you need more energy. If you think about long distance runners, marathon runners, this is why they'll bring things like gel packs or honey with them on their runs, because after a while of exerting that much energy, they become fatigued, right? Your cells can only store so much glycogen to be converted into glucose as a fuel source. So they have to provide simple sugars in order to be quickly broken down to glucose to be used as an immediate energy source and replenish their glycogen storage and then get them through that race. If they weren't to replenish their glycogen stores, they'd be hitting a wall really quickly, probably not able to finish the race because their body can't produce energy quickly enough at that point. The same thing is happening for all of us every single day. It's just going to be on a much different level than that of a marathon runner. So, what happens then when you don't have adequate carbohydrate intake and your body needs that fuel source? Because it doesn't matter if you're running a marathon or not, your body is constantly burning energy at all times. Again, on a different level than someone who is currently running a marathon, but it is still constantly burning energy regardless of what you're doing. Because your body's one and only goal is survival, that's like the only thing it's in charge of is just literally keeping you alive every day. It gets really smart and it will find a way to supply glucose to your brain, nervous system, muscles, and organs because glucose is needed. It's a requirement, it's not optional. If you don't have an energy source, you die. Like, that's it. So, it will find a way to provide that glucose for fuel. And if you're not supplying adequate carbohydrate intake to your body, that glucose comes from non sugars or non carbohydrates through a process called gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis is the process of converting non carbohydrate sources, aka your fats and your proteins, into glucose. The body can break down glucose from muscle storages, leading to muscle loss, or leading to it utilizing a lot of your protein intake for fuel instead of it going to building muscle mass, which I don't think any of us want. Or your body will enter ketosis, where it will start breaking down fat stores to produce ketones for energy. And y'all already knew that I had to bring up the keto diet on an episode about carbs. Before anyone starts ranting and raving about keto and why it's so great for fat loss, that's all fine and good if you want to do keto. You do you. But if you're going to decide to start a keto diet, plan to be on it forever in order to keep whatever results you do obtain while doing it. And plan to never, ever, ever break it, not even for one single day. Because if you're doing keto and you break it, even just for one day, this will cause your blood sugar to skyrocket, stopping ketone production, resulting in your body switching back over to utilizing glucose from those carbs instead of from fats, which takes days or even up to a week for your body to undo and be able to re enter ketosis, essentially undoing the benefits of the keto diet. And if anyone has been doing keto and you say that you've broken ketosis and still been able to see weight loss afterwards, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but weight loss isn't a benefit or a result of keto. It's a result of a calorie deficit. So, yes, you can still see weight loss after breaking ketosis as long as you've remained in a calorie deficit, because ketosis isn't what causes the weight loss. So, the true benefits of the keto diet are undone when you break it, even for a short time. You can achieve the same exact results, potentially even better results, without cutting out carbs and without working against your body and its natural function. Because your body's natural function is to utilize carbs. Carbohydrates are your body's and your brain's preferred source of fuel. don't work against that and hate your life while you're at it because you can't ever have bread for the rest of your life. Like, what kind of life is that? If you tell me that I can't ever have a donut again in my life, I'm out. That's it for me. But, anyways, getting back on track, carbs are so beneficial to your body if consumed in the correct amount. And the correct amount is probably much higher than you think it is. But we'll get to how much to be consuming in a little bit. Right now, I want to talk about how carbs help you reach your body recomp goals. Most people think that carbs are what cause weight gain and they should be avoided. And if this is you, I've got good news and I've got bad news. And they're both that you're wrong. It's not your fault. We've all been lied to, and most of us just don't know any better. Carbohydrates are not what cause weight gain. A calorie surplus is the one and only thing that causes weight gain. I've talked about this before, but I will say it until I'm blue in the face if I have to. Eating above your caloric maintenance, meaning that you're consuming more calories than your body is burning each day, is what causes weight gain, not carbs. It doesn't matter where those calories are coming from. If your caloric maintenance, which is just the amount of calories that your body specifically needs each day in order to stay exactly the same, not lose or gain weight, your caloric maintenance is 2,000, we'll say, as an example, and you're eating 2,200 calories every day from fruits and vegetables, which would probably be really hard to do. That's a lot of fruits and veggies, but again, just an example, you will gain weight. If your caloric maintenance is 2,000 calories a day and you're eating more calories than that per day in chicken and rice and kale smoothies and any other type of quote unquote healthy foods, you will gain weight, even if you're not eating any carbs. I know I included carbs in that example, but even if you weren't eating one single gram of carbs and you're eating over your caloric maintenance, the number on the scale will go up. The carbs are not what's causing weight gain. Your calorie surplus is what's causing the weight gain. The same thing applies in reverse. If you want to lose weight and you're eating in a caloric deficit, meaning you're eating less calories per day than what your body is burning, you will lose weight. It is the one and only way to do so. I don't care what anyone says. You're going to hear people say that's not true. I promise it's science. That is a fact. It's not up for debate. A calorie deficit is the only way you're going to lose weight because if you're supplying enough energy to your body, which is done through the foods you eat, it doesn't have to get rid of anything. It's not going to just magically start burning fat off of you if you're supplying enough food and calories to it and not putting it in the required state to do so. So, as long as you're eating less than you're burning each day, you're going to see a smaller number on the scale. Doesn't matter what kind of diet you're doing. And when I say this, this is assuming that you don't have any rare underlying health issues or complications that could prevent this, which applies to about 1% of the population. So the good news is that this is probably most likely not you, which is a good thing. It means that the very simple solution of just remaining in a consistent calorie deficit over a period of time will work for you. As long as you're not that 1% anomaly, if your caloric maintenance is 2,000 calories a day and you're eating 1,800 calories a day and all carbs, you're going to lose weight. Now, you don't actually want to only eat carbs because, A, again, health reasons. Your body also needs proteins and fats to properly function in other areas. And B, you might lose weight on the scale, but you're not necessarily losing body fat. You're losing more muscle mass, if anything. And this is where having a proper macronutrient distribution comes into play, and we would need to be eating in a calorie deficit and having adequate protein intake in order to be losing fat, not just weight, and obtaining a better physique and not just ending up with that skinny fat look. But that's a conversation for another day. Getting back to carbs. They do not hinder your fat loss goals or body recomp goals. They help you. If you want to lose fat and you're exercising, as we all should be, Where do you think you get the energy to do that? If you're strength training and you have little to no energy, do you think that you're going to be able to push that hard and get an effective workout in? Probably not. If you're going on a run and you're feeling really run down and like you have zero energy, how good do you think that run is going to be? But if you have adequate carb intake, that's what's providing you the energy, the fuel, to be able to push and challenge yourself and lift heavier and run farther and have a killer workout that you can feel confident leaving the gym after, knowing it was effective because you really gave it your all because you had the energy to do so. When you get home from the gym and you're eating your post gym meal and you're making sure to get your protein in because you know you need to eat your protein if you want to build some muscle, carbs help push and transfer the proteins into your broken down muscle fibers, leading to better muscle protein synthesis, muscle recovery, and muscle growth. So please stop viewing carbs in such a negative light just because that's what you hear in movies and TV shows and from companies who don't benefit off you actually losing the weight and thriving in your health. Because I hate to tell you, but not everyone or every company is rooted in morality and is truthful. Because if they were, they wouldn't make a profit. They rely on you believing lies and myths and love to fearmonger. But instead of just taking what they have to say at face value or what I have to say at face value, go do your research because I can guarantee that almost everything you know to be true about anything within the realm of health and fitness is a lie. And I could go on and on about that, but I'll just let that lie. Let's get into the more practical side here. How much of your daily intake should be coming from carbs? The general recommendation is for about 45 to 65% of your caloric intake per day to be coming from carbohydrates. If you remember from last week, we want to aim for around 30% of our intake to be coming from protein. So, right there, you can see that we need more carbs than we do protein. Majority of our calories for the day should be coming from carbohydrates. So, going back to what I said before, the correct amount of carbs is probably more than you were thinking it was. So, anywhere from 45 to 65% of carbs. That's a little bit of a wide range, but tailor this to your specific needs. If you're someone who is super active, avid runner, I would stay on the higher end for sure. If you're more sedentary, maybe staying on the lower end would work best for you. Maybe you're someone who really doesn't care for that many carbs. You're more of like a healthy fats person, and your lifestyle and activity level don't really require a higher carb intake. Staying on the lower end of this would leave more room for a little bit of a higher fat intake. So tailor this number to your specific situation. And the way that you would figure this so that you could find out how many grams of carbs 45 to 65% of your intake looks like is like this. I always like to use 2000 as my example number because it's just a nice even number. So if you were eating 2000 calories a day, for instance, 45 to 65% would be 225 grams to 325 grams of carbs a day. The way that you would find that number is by multiplying 2000 by 0.45 for 45% or by 0.65 for 65% to get 900 to 1300. Essentially meaning that if your intake is 2000 calories a day, general recommendation is for anywhere from 900 to 1300 of those calories to be coming from carb sources per day. In order to find out what this would be in grams, you would then divide those numbers that you get, 900 and 1300 in this instance, by 4, because there are 4 calories for every 1 gram of carb. So, while eating 2000 calories a day, falling anywhere between 225 grams to 325 grams of carbs per day is the general recommendation. Now, carb sources. I think this one is pretty easy. I think most of us generally know what a carb is. It's your things like your bread, pasta, rice, orzo, bulgur wheat, risotto, fruits, vegetables, etc. So I don't think we need to go further into that, but I will talk about simple versus complex carbs. Simple carbohydrates are ones that break down quickly in the body for an immediate boost of energy and result in a quick raise in blood sugar levels. Complex carbohydrates break down much slower, providing a more sustained release of energy over time. And the reason complex carbs break down slower is due to their higher fiber content. Fiber helps slow everything down when it comes to digestion. Complex carbs have a more gradual raise in blood sugar than simple carbs do. Simple carbs are going to be coming from things like your sugar, candy, honey, juices, fruit, refined carbohydrates, which are those that have been more processed and stripped of their fiber and most of their nutrients. Complex carbs are your whole grains, like brown rice, quinoa, whole wheat bread. They're also your legumes, starchy vegetables like potatoes, corn, peas. So think about how things like candy, sugar, juices, those cause a spike in blood glucose levels, leading to a boost of quick energy. Whereas the complex carbs, if you're having starchy vegetables, that's not happening. It's much more of a sustained form of energy. And I know fruit is listed as a simple carb, and it is because of its sugar content. However, it does still contain fiber and other nutrients that we want, so they're not on the same level as processed sugars. I don't want anyone walking away from today's episode thinking that fruit is bad because it's a simple sugar. Fruit isn't bad for you. You don't have to stop eating it past 5 p.m., but it is still considered a simple carb. You don't have to stay away from all simple carbs. Just like always, everything in moderation. But I just wanted to go over the difference between simple and complex carbs. But I think that has brought us to the end of our deep dive into carbohydrates. Key takeaways: carbs aren't the devil, they're not what's causing weight gain, and they shouldn't be feared. Carbs have an essential role in the body when it comes to energy. Keto isn't the answer if you're just looking to lose weight, and cutting out carbs isn't what's causing any sort of weight loss. Don't believe everything that you hear, even if everyone around you is saying the same thing. Just because a million people repeat a lie doesn't make it true. Do your own research. Aim for anywhere between 45 to 65% of your daily intake coming from carbs. Simple carbs break down a lot quicker and provide an immediate source of energy rather than complex carbs, which break down slower and provide energy over a longer period of time. This was hands down one of my favorite episodes I've ever done. I really love getting into the science of nutrition, how different foods affect the body, and doing some myth busting is always fun. You definitely also want to listen in on next week's episode because next Monday, we're wrapping up this series with a deep dive into fats, which is going to be good as well. So make sure not to miss it. Until then, I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week, and we'll talk later.